Hey, welcome back. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi, and this is Echoes of the Ancients. You know, sometimes I think the most profound conversations happen in silence. Not the awkward kind, but the kind filled with meaning. I remember being a kid in Dhaka, sitting with my grandfather. He wouldn't always speak, but he'd have this way of slowly, deliberately knotting his fishing net. Each loop, each tight pull of the twine, it was like he was thinking with his hands. I'd watch, completely mesmerized. I didn't know it then, but I was witnessing a language far older than words. A language of knots. And that brings us to a mystery, one that sprawled across the spine of the Andes. Imagine an empire, the largest in the world at its height in the 15th century, with no written script, no alphabet carved in stone, no ink on parchment. How did the Inca govern 10 million people across thousands of miles of rugged mountains? How did they record their history, their grain stores, their stories? The answer is they did right. They just wrote in a language we're still learning to whisper. They wrote in knots. This is the silent language of the Quipu. So picture this. You're a Quipucamayoc, a keeper of the knots. Your ledger is not a book, but a collection of cords, often made of cotton or llama wool. A main cord, from which dozens, sometimes hundreds of pendant cords dangle. And on those pendants, more cords branch off. And on each one, knots. Not random tangles, but precise, deliberate knots. The type of knot, its position on the cord, the spacing between knots, even the color and spin of the cord itself. Every element was a piece of data. This was a tactile, three-dimensional recording system. It was the database of the Inca Empire. For a long time, Western scholars looked at quipus and saw, well, just knotted strings. They assumed they were primitive accounting tools, maybe just for counting potatoes or llamas. A simple mnemonic device. But that assumption says more about us than it does about the Inca. We expect information to look a certain way, linear, on a flat surface. The Inca thought in dimensions. They encoded information in a format that was portable, durable, and incredibly sophisticated. Think about it. In a land of earthquakes and steep trails, a quipu won't tear like paper. It won't shatter like a clay tablet. If it gets wet, it dries. It is, in many ways, the perfect technology for its environment. Let's break down how it worked, because this is where it gets beautiful. The core function we understand is numerical. The Inca used a base 10 decimal system, just like we do. A figure of 8 knot represented the number 1. A long knot, with multiple turns, could represent 2 through 9, depending on those turns. And a slip knot, a complex knot at the bottom of the cord, represented a multiple of 10, 100, or 1,000. The position of the knot was its place value. The higher up the cord, the larger the number. So, by feeling the knots, and yes, a skilled Quipucamayoc could likely read them in the dark, you could census a population, tally tributes, or track astronomical cycles. It was the spreadsheet of the Andes. But here's the haunting, elusive part. Many researchers, like the late Gary Urton at Harvard, have come to believe quipus recorded more than just numbers. They may have been narrative. They may have held stories, laws, and histories. The clues are in the colors and the structure. In the Andean world, color was deeply symbolic. A red cord might signify the Inca emperor or war. Yellow could be gold, or the sun god, Inti. Green for the forest, or for conquest. The way cords were plied, spun clockwise or counterclockwise, might have indicated a positive or negative value, or something more abstract. The very arrangement of pendant cords could map a territory or a genealogy. This means a single quipu could be read on multiple levels, a tax record to an administrator and a foundational myth to a priest. The same knots tell two stories, one of quantity, one of identity. And that duality speaks to me. As an engineer, I see an elegant data structure. As a storyteller, I hear a poem waiting to be recited. It reminds me of the layered meanings in the folk tales I heard growing up, where a simple story about a jackal also held a lesson about cunning, about survival, about the social order. The tragedy, of course, is the silence that fell. When the Spanish arrived in the 16th century, they systematically dismantled the Inca world. They saw the quipus as idolatrous, or as tools of a state they needed to erase to establish control. Many Quipucamayocs were persecuted, and countless quipus were destroyed. The language of knots was severed, its grammar forgotten. Today, only about 1,000 quipus survive, mostly in museum drawers, and we are like strangers trying to decipher a lost song by looking at the grooves on a broken record. We have the medium, but the music is gone. Yet, there's a stubborn hope. In remote Peruvian villages, there are stories of families who kept not making traditions alive, woven into textiles and farming tools. And modern scholars are using everything from database analysis to textile archaeology to try and crack the code. They're comparing quipus to Spanish colonial documents that might be transcriptions of their contents, looking for patterns. Every few years, there's a new hint, a new possible fragment of meaning recovered. It's a slow, painstaking process of reknotting a connection across 5 centuries. It makes me wonder about the nature of language itself. We think of language as something spoken or written in symbols that represent sounds. But the Quipu challenges that entirely. It is a language built from texture, from geometry, from color and space. It's a language you feel in your fingertips. In a way, it's the ultimate echo, an idea made physical, designed to last, to be passed hand to hand. It tells us that intelligence isn't expressed in one way, that a civilization's voice can be woven, not written. So the next time you tie a knot, on your shoelace, on a package, even on that fishing net, pause for a second. Feel the pull of the cord, the security of the loop. In that simple action, you're touching a human impulse as old as memory itself, the desire to make a mark, to record, to say, I am here, and this matters. The Inca took that impulse and built an empire with it. They spoke, and they are still speaking, in a silent, knotted tongue that waits for us to listen. Thank you for listening to this episode of Echoes of the Ancients. If this journey into the language of knots resonated with you, please share it with someone. It helps more people discover these stories. This show is produced by Light Knot Studios. You can find more of our work and support the podcast by visiting lightknotstudios.com. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi. Until next time, keep listening for the echoes.